Hey guys, this is Gaijin Hunter, and welcome to the second episode of Gaijin Hunter Unscripted. This is just a podcast style like video where I can talk my mind, talk about Monster Hunter, other video games, my life, Japan, anything that is just on my mind. I'm going to try my hardest this time to reduce the amount of ums that I say before I speak. I do realize that when I go unscripted, it's kind of a habit I have, is to, one, say a lot, and also abuse the word literally, which I know I've seen in comments many times before. Some of you guys pointed that out to me, that I use that word too much. So hopefully I can avoid them, but being unscripted, we'll have to see what happens. I guess all the talk around town right now is about E3 being cancelled, so I wanted to share my thoughts on that. First, I can't stand the amount of negative, sarcastic, I don't know how else to put it, just really nasty attitudes that I see on Twitter and online. People saying the format was dead anyways, it's pointless, I hope you guys learned your lesson. I don't know, just all this type of bad stuff, and I just don't understand it. As gamers, I think E3 week has always been very special. If you look at the attendance numbers, it's actually not that large. The whole point of it obviously was all the press conferences, all the live streams, all the new reveals that went on, consumer facing. And then from an industry point of view, there's a lot of stuff that happens behind the scenes when it comes to making new connections, developers meeting publishers, friends finally meeting each other, just good journalism stuff, a lot of good stuff behind the scenes. So I think we're all losing out on the idea that there's no E3. Now, I think it was the right call, obviously, with the virus that's going around and everything else. We're just trying to minimize the spread. It's impossible to contain at this moment. So I think they made the right choice. And I think if I want to look at this as a positive, I want to say that most companies are going to try doing digital stuff. Obviously, because of the timeline of when E3 falls, they want to talk about what's coming up in their portfolio, whether it's for the holiday season or for the year to come, or years to come in some companies' situations. So I still think that we're going to see a whole lot of announcements, and I would love to see E3 week still sort of all happen in one concentrated week or two. I think that was really fun. It gets everybody really active, looking online. I know from a publisher standpoint, the idea is that there's an oversaturation of news. But on the flip side, I think there's a lot of attention. Like if you announce something, people are receptive and they're looking for news. So I do think that it's a little bit easier to get your new game out there if you talk about it during E3 week. So this year I think is going to be really interesting in that it's going to be experimental. A lot of companies are going to have to try new digital methods of doing, whether like press conferences, whether it's live or if it's pre-scripted like Nintendo Directs. It'll be very interesting to see how each company sort of does it, and we're going to have some hits, we're going to have some misses, but that's okay because I think that this is a great learning opportunity for the industry and also E3 organizers as well. I think they can look at what things this year really worked and which ones didn't, and try to integrate that into their E3 show next year. I think we're going to be in a very good place, and this could actually work to our benefit in the long run. So I'm with the organizers of E3. I'm rooting for them. I want them to succeed. I hope this year digitally we can have some really good ideas and executions, and that from next year it's just better than it's ever been. I guess in other gaming news, obviously Animal Crossing is coming out this month, and I've never really been a big Animal Crossing player. I remember doing Monster Hunter patterns for my hat and wallpaper, and I posted them on Twitter years and years ago. And I found a lot of fun in that, but I've never really played the Animal Crossing games beyond that one. So I wasn't really interested in getting this one, so to say. I think partly because Yuna hasn't shown any interest. She's been very hooked on her iPad and playing those games, and me as well. As I said in the last episode, me and her have been playing a lot of the side games applications together, and they've been really fun. So I showed her some of the videos for Animal Crossing, and I think the amount of customization wasn't really known to either of us, especially her. But when she saw the level of customization you could do, especially being able to design your own patterns and stuff, she was like, I want this game. And that means a lot because she has her own Switch, but she doesn't play it that often. Again, she likes to just chill in her room with her iPad because she can zip between apps. She can, listen and watch YouTube while she plays. To her and her generation, I think that that's a really big deal. Where someone like me comes from a more, traditional escape from everything, want that traditional dedicated hardware experience. So I'm pretty excited that she's interested, and because she's interested, now I'm interested. So we're gonna get the game. It falls out really good because she's at home all month because they canceled all school this month in Japan because of the virus. So obviously she's got tons of time on her hand. It's also really close to her 11th birthday, which is March 24th, so I'll get her Animal Crossing and a few other things for her birthday, and I think that'll make her very happy. I was on Twitter and I was talking quite a bit about sort of the save data situation with Animal Crossing, and I was quite critical, like a lot of other people, about what they had announced, which was that you only get one save data per console, which I guess makes sense because they want all the profiles to be able to go to the same island and interact with that main account. The problem being that although they don't support save data in the cloud, which is fine, games like Splatoon or Pokemon don't, and I understand the reasons because you can roll back your save data and do all sorts of stuff, so it sort of removes the element of surprise when there's anything in the game that is random. But instead of just that, they also said that they won't support save data transfer, which is crazy. There's only one other game that does that, which is Yu-Gi-Oh! And I've written Konami over and over again asking them to please change their stance. Basically what happens is you can take Splatoon, Mario, Pokemon even. What you do is when you do save transfer, it allows you to move your data from one Switch to the other. Same account, it removes it from one Switch and puts it on the other. It really helps for people like me who have two Switches. I have one at home which is docked and in the Elgato, so I can play that on the big screen. I can record and do stuff like that. And on my main driver, which is my Switch Lite, I could just quickly move over my save data and take it on the go. It adds a small little process when I come home and I want to continue on the docked Switch, but it's not a big deal, and it's really good from a consumer standpoint because I'm not cheating or anything, I'm just playing it on two different devices that I own. Anyways, they did a 180. Apparently enough people complained, so they changed their website and they said by the end of this year, they plan to have not only a method which is unique to this game for being able to back up your save data in case of like your Switch gets broken, lost, or stolen. Took away the wording that said you can only do it once. They just said, you know, it's coming sometime this year, you will need to have Switch Online. They'll give more details later, so that's good. But on top of that, they also mentioned specifically on the Japanese site in the FAQ, can I move my save data from one Switch to a second Switch that I bought? And they said that by the end of the year, they will find a unique solution for this game that will allow you to do it. So, you know, I can't complain right now. It kind of sucks that it's not going to be there for launch, and we don't really know the details of how it works. So hopefully it's not going to be something ridiculous like Pokemon Home where they charge you money to move data from one game to another or whatever, so not. But we'll have to see. I'm remaining optimistic. I think if they can do a 180 like this right before launch, it shows that they're listening. So yeah, fingers crossed that constructive criticism wins in the end of the day and everyone's happy. Also, speaking about games, Nioh 2 just came out today and I'm quite interested to play it, but I did sell my PlayStation 4 recently. That was that Rathalos Edition PS4 Pro. There's lots of reasons why. One, because I know I'm going to get a PlayStation 5. I mean, I get all the game systems, so that's just kind of a no-brainer for me. I really didn't see any PlayStation games that I wanted to play this year. One, because I had completely forgotten about Nioh 2, and Final Fantasy VII is something that I plan to probably just watch people play, and I'll probably get it when PlayStation 5 comes out, because the wording and the assumption is that PlayStation 4 games will play on PlayStation 5. I'm assuming that's going to be every game. If it's not, then Sony's going to get a lot of heat for it. But from an architecture standpoint, they should be able to pull it off, and seeing that Microsoft is doing the same thing for the Xbox, it's kind of a no-brainer that they're going to allow full backwards compatibility, at least with PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5. But yeah, I sold the PlayStation 4 now because I figured I wasn't going to play a lot of it for the next half a year or so. If that's the case, then I should sell it now where the sale price is high, and then use those funds to get a PlayStation 5 at the end of the year. If it comes out at the end of the year, we'll have to see. So, you know, I'm a little, sad that I can't play Nioh 2 because I really like the first one. It's one of the greatest action systems I've ever experienced in a video game. I love the aesthetic, just everything about the game was great. It just got a little too hardcore for me near probably the last, I'd say I got to the last 10% of the game. And I know that's really funny because I have recently beaten Sekiro, and that was really hard. But there's just something different about it. Like Nioh felt a little bit more mechanically challenging for me, just because there's so much different inputs and different, it's almost like 4D chess. There's so much that you think about when you play. In a way, that's also the greatness, because man, when you really get into the groove, it feels so good. Where Sekiro almost to me played like an arcade game, in that the amount of moves you could do were actually quite limited, and it was just the severity of the timing, the footwork, the spacing, and stuff like that that added the nuance into the battle. So yeah, Nioh, everything I'm reading about it sounds like it's an absolute improvement over the first game, which is saying a lot. So I think it's going to be a fantastic game, and I'm looking forward to watching people play it on Twitch, and hopefully playing it myself. I did get a reminder that it does seem that they're going to come out with a PC version sometime near the end of the year, so I'll probably just end up getting that. So for those of you who did get Nioh 2, let me know down in the comments how you're enjoying it. I am quite interested. And I didn't want to talk about this anymore, but I did recently watch that entire podcast with TSC, talking about sort of speedrunning versus the casual gamer circles in Monster Hunter, and just sort of his thoughts around what had happened. And also he had some really interesting in-depth talks about how he and Sam approached the Nioh fight in the Monster Hunter Festa at Boston, which was absolutely fascinating. For someone like me who's a casual player, being able to hear about, you know, the timing, how they went about scripting the battle is very, very fascinating, because I can't do that, but I can certainly understand and appreciate it. Anyways, I listened to the whole thing, and most of it is not really about the subject. It was just, you know, them three guys having a good time talking. And I think one good thing to remember is that a lot of people are taking clips of that podcast and then talking about it on Twitter. That's never a good idea. I think anytime you see a clip that makes you raise your eyebrow and you're like, I think a good thing to do is to track down the source and watch all of it in context, and then see if you still feel the same. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. You know, it changes your opinion. So I remember seeing the clip, watching the podcast and listening to it, and I think, you know, like everything on Twitter these days, everything's overblown from both ends. But I do think that TSC had some interesting points, particularly him. I think the other two guys said some things that I didn't quite agree with, but he was talking a little bit about, you know, just his frustrations, and even being self-aware that, you know, his approach was not always the best. But the frustration that he has between a speedrunner talking to a non-speedrunner in terms of the mechanics and just the features of Monster Hunter. And I think this goes across any game. I think, as he said, any way that a speedrunner looks at and approaches the game is very different from a normal sort of, you know, non-speedrun player, because they're looking at mechanics from a speedrunning point of view. So if there's a randomness that shouldn't be there, they're going to look at that as a bad feature. If there's unbalanced things, it's not just like who cares. To them, it does matter, because it sort of shifts the amount of variety that you could do in a speed run and stuff like that. So I thought it was an interesting conversation, and I think for his part, I think he needs to understand a little more that people who are not speedrunners don't understand speedrunning stuff, and I don't think they're interested to hear about it, as horrible as that sounds. And I think because they're speaking such a different language, that's where some speedrunners can come off sounding egotistical or just, you know, on a high chair or something. Obviously, you do have some narcissistic people out there, but when you're talking about, no, this is bad, no, this is good, no, this is objectively worse than that, like, these are all spreadsheet speedrunner phrases, right? Like, and they work. They make sense in the context of speedrunning. For example, I got in arguments with people all the time on Twitter concerning Prowler and how powerful it is or isn't. And from a speedrunner standpoint, obviously they're very critical of any weapon like the Prowler, where they're like, okay, well, this was a bad change, this was a good change, it's not as powerful as the other weapons. And I think in the context of speedrunning, that's absolutely true. You can't dispute that. The problem is that when a speedrunner says it very general like that, people can then start retweeting and sharing that as if it's just a major statement about the game itself, which it's not. Trust me, you can have the same armor, the same skills, the same min-max stuff as a speedrunner, and your times won't even be nearly as good as them, because they're working within a point of view that is so different from ours. They're seeing and counting different actions and sequences and events in the game that we're probably not even aware of. I do love watching speedrun videos because it's just so fascinating. They make it look very easy, but then you realize that everything was very calculated and tested out relentlessly to make sure that there's a script that they can go by. So anyways, it was an interesting conversation. I think the one phrase in there that was rubbing people wrong was him trying to explain, and I think he was talking more from his personal experience and not in general, so maybe his wording wasn't very good. But he was saying something about, you know, he is a speedrunner, and other speedrunners he knows are very critical people. They see the faults in games, they see the faults in their own performance, and it's this mentality of being always able to see areas where you can improve or things that are not that good, leads to the mentality of a speedrunner who can see those micro sort of improvements that can be possible, and then they execute on them, and they get slower and slowly closer to perfection. And so I think he was using the word, you know, you have to be kind of toxic to be a speedrunner. He was using that with quotes, like air quotes, because in the overall conversation he was just saying how people label him as toxic for pointing out flaws in the game, complaining about features that from a speedrunner standpoint are not good changes, or there were changes that they wanted that they didn't get in the game, and that, you know, a lot of speedrunners are just not happy with certain things. So I say whatever. I think overall it's not an issue. I think, you know, there was some bad beef between some people online, but I think that was all very isolated. I don't know any of these guys personally, and I don't really watch their stuff, so I don't know if there's other sort of, what's the right word, controversies in the past that I'm not aware of, or, you know, I'm not judging anybody. I'm just saying that for this topic, speedrunners versus casuals, I thought there was some interesting dissection of their Nioh fight, which is definitely worth listening to. And I do think that it's interesting to keep an open mind when it comes to the fact that, you know, people play the game differently, and that's okay. That's actually great. But they also look at the game very differently. So a speedrunner trying to explain to a casual person, you know, you don't get it, or this isn't good, and I don't know why you're saying it good, is pointless, because you're not playing the game from the same perspective. In the same area that a casual player should not be going up to a speedrunner and saying, wow, that was so boring of what you did, or that was cheesy, or I don't understand why you did that. It's like, of course you don't understand it, because we have different objectives. So anyways, I think 99.9999999% of the Monster Hunter community, both casual and speedrunners, love each other, and I think that the community is united and has a lot of fun. So for those of you who don't, come on, grow up. I don't know what else to say about that. In personal news and wonderful news, I actually found a pack of toilet paper today. If you've been following me on Twitter, you will notice that, like other countries, there's a big problem with panic purchasing, where anytime there's a crisis, whether it's an earthquake, virus, whatever is going around, people get in their minds sometimes really wrong ideas about what type of materials they need to stock up on or buy. And it ends up hurting people who actually need this stuff. So masks right now are very hard to get. Anything antibacterial, hand sanitizers, tissue paper, and toilet paper. Which is kind of dumb, because toilet paper in Japan, it all stemmed kind of from false reports that, you know, fear-mongering, saying that toilet paper would be the next thing from masks, because the materials are made in China, so there's going to be a shortage, so we better stock up now. Which is completely false, because toilet paper for the most part is made in Japan using materials from Japan. So there shouldn't be a shortage of it, but there is, because people are lining up at stores and buying tons of it, which is stupid. And it just, I've been down to my last 3 rolls. I'm lucky because I do have one of those nice Japanese sort of bidet, like mechanical toilet things that do spray you. Problem is that you don't just have a bidet and it doesn't wash you so clean that you just wipe yourself with a towel and you're done. You still need a little bit of toilet paper to finish the job. So, you know, you don't go through toilet paper fast at all. You go through it very slowly, but you still need it. So I've been looking for toilet paper for the last few weeks, and it's been impossible. So I went to a store today and I found toilet paper. So I very happily bought a single pack, which was like 18 rolls. That'll last me like half a year or longer. So yeah, I'm pretty happy about that. I don't like this idea of hoard buying. It's horrible, because you can have just one little bit of a rumor that something works and then people go off and do stupid stuff. We're seeing people around the world die and hurt themselves because they thought something was a cure. You have people buying up masks that people who actually need them can't get them now. Hand sanitizers, they're having shortages when they shouldn't. So yeah, it's just an unfortunate situation. So everyone should just keep up to date with the facts, the advice of experts in the fields, and of course just wash those hands. It's the best thing you can do, as far as I'm aware, is when you get home or at any opportunity, just wash your hands thoroughly with soap and water and try not to touch your face. Other than that, I mean, if you're in an exposed area where there's a virus in the air and you breathe that air, you could get it. I mean, there's just no avoiding it, which is why they're telling people to avoid crowded places and try to self-quarantine if you don't feel well, because at this point you can't contain it. They're just trying to slow the spread of the virus. So I hope everybody who are out there, wherever you live, I hope you're safe. I hope you're healthy. Make sure not to panic. Read though and be educated on what you should be doing, and let's just hope for the best. Anyways, that's really all I have to talk about today, so I would love to know your comments below. I know you guys gave me tons of positive feedback on the last time I did a podcast, which was super appreciated. So I did stuff like trying to reduce the sound of the background music, because I know there was a comment or two saying that it was a little loud, so hopefully that worked. A lot of you guys seem to like the timestamp, so you can jump to subjects that you might be interested in, and a lot of you told me to not hold back and to just go on about a topic until I feel that I've said everything I wanted to say. So I kind of rambled in this one, just trying to get out my thoughts. So let me know down in the comments below if that was a good idea, if I should be a little bit more concise, or if there should be some type of structure in the type of stuff that I cover, because right now it's pretty random. Anyways, I do enjoy this because I haven't been able to make like videos, like edited videos, so being able to just create something and put it out there feels good. And keeps my brain active. It makes me feel like I'm making stuff and doing stuff. So hopefully you enjoyed it as well. Anyways, thanks for listening, and until next time, happy hand washing.